Hey guys, so things are progressing really fast in the garden right now, and I'm super excited to show you guys everything that's been going on. It's kind of been a minute since I've done one of my more traditional garden tours, so today we're going to actually go through everything in the garden and talk about it. We're going to start off with the tomato row, and it is actually a tomato row again, finally. And you can see I've done a ton of mulching. I've tried, it used to look like this with all the weeds, and I've done some work to kind of get that down. Although if you look really closely, you can see it definitely still has some weeds mixed in there, but it's so much better than it was. So yeah, down along this row, most of what you can actually see right now is basil, but there are little tomato plants here. And they actually, so I made kind of a big mistake. I planted them just a touch too soon. I was in a hurry to put them in the ground because I was going to be doing some traveling, and I did not remember to check the weather. I checked it a few days before, but you know, we all know that the weather can change, right? And so what ended up happening is the day after, so like the night after I planted my tomatoes, we got a baby frost. It was like 31 degrees. And I about cried. I think about half of the tomatoes that I had planted out here actually just straight up died instantly. And a couple of them look kind of sad. They look like they might recover. And then some of them actually just look absolutely fine. You know, it really illustrates the microclimates that can happen in a garden because, you know, they're all outside in the same general row, and the temperature variance just along the row was enough to save some of them and completely annihilate others. So this one is one of the healthiest looking ones that I've got. You can see this is some of the leaves that it had when the frost came through, and then all the newer leaves it's been putting on since then look great because the weather has been much better. And it's gonna take a little bit to recover. So what I did was I immediately planted more tomato seeds to make up for the lost plants. And also, as these guys grow up, I'm thinking I'll be able to take cuttings off of them and reroot those and kind of fill in some of the empty spaces. I also have some of my classic vining beans. These are blue cocoa, but not bush beans, pole beans, that's the word. Blue cocoa pole beans. And actually, so I did plant this one, but I have two others along the row that just came up in approximately the right spot at approximately the right time, probably from seeds that I had dropped or the plant had dropped over last summer. I still do need to plant more of those, but right now we have 3 plants along the row getting going. And usually I do only stick with like 3 to 5-ish. I'm thinking I could do maybe more than I did last year. So I'm gonna go closer to 5 than the 3 that I think I had last year. So as far as basil goes, I have a few different varieties tucked in here. So this is an Emily basil. This is gonna be like a classic sweet basil, good for pesto. I also have purple basils, and this one looks like it's getting eaten a little bit, but it'll probably be okay. I usually expect a little bit of damage when plants first go in the ground, and that's why I like for them to be kind of bigger transplants. This one looks like it'll hold up pretty well. This one is doing a better job of holding up, but I absolutely love the purple color, and the flavor is very similar to the Emily basil. I have a Thai basil that I picked up at the store because none of mine sprouted for some reason. And then I also have some holy basil, which is, it's hard to say it's my favorite basil, but it's definitely really up there among my favorite plants. Holy basil always smells so good, but it's not super good for pesto, and I do love my pesto. Here's an example of one of those tomato plants that is like, you know, barely alive after the freeze, but definitely still technically alive. This massive plant here is actually one of my 2 marshmallow plants coming back. The leaves are just ridiculously soft on this. And this came back from its roots, which are what I will eventually harvest. And because it's its 2nd year, that means I will actually be able to start looking at harvesting the roots, which is really exciting. And back here in the back corner, I have a new rosemary plant. If you remember, my last one died over the winter, and so I decided instead of sticking a new one in the old spot that I would put this new one in a new spot. It's kind of right here on the edge of the garden, and I'm hoping it'll be a good corner piece. Along with the basil in between where the tomatoes go, I did also put in a few other herbs. I have a couple of little dill plants and some cilantro down there. And this one is actually a type of spinach. I'm not like super convinced it's gonna do so well because it's been really struggling. This is a at least 6 or 8 week old plant, and it's tiny, you know, it's barely hanging on, but it's supposed to be a warm weather loving spinach, so we'll see how it does. All right, so this second row here, this is got not a lot in it so far. It's got the garlic, same as over under the tomatoes, and then everything else that's here is pretty much not going to be here when I go ahead and start planting out. This is going to be peppers and eggplant mostly at the front, and then I think I said I'd do a little bit about a patch of corn at the back. There are a couple other things tucked in here among the weeds. For example, my potato onions are here, being choked out by a little bit of chickweed. So that's this here, and let's see, this one over here. I think, yeah, here's one here that's right next to my plantain. And I think there's a fourth one in here somewhere. Hard to find right now. I will have to eventually dig it out. I'm feeling really split on the way that I let all the weeds grow up over the winter. I think on the one hand, it definitely has helped the soil and has helped all of the insects, specifically the pollinators that came in first thing when it started warming up. But it is a problem. It's something I'm going to have to deal with. I can't just plant all my plants with all these weeds because they are going to eventually get choked out. So what I did here with the tomato row, where I just flattened everything, I put down some cardboard over it, and then I put some straw on top of that. I am really liking that because that does preserve the soil structure, but it does make it's just a tedious process, right? Because you have to go around every single little plant that you want to keep. I am definitely experimenting as I go and trying out all these things, and hopefully you guys can learn something from that without having to try it all yourself. Right in here, this is my kohlrabi that never really made a bulb, but it is going to seed, and it is really quite pretty. Unfortunately, all of my brassicas that are still here, they are going to seed, and they are also very bitter. I definitely have tried a few of the leaves, and it's so bad. I have to spit it out. Just not good. However, very beautiful. We do still have a couple of months, I would say. Oh, hello, Kata. We do still have a couple of months on the garlic. Usually I will harvest garlic around June-ish. And what I'm looking for here is for the bottom like 2 or 3 leaves to fully die back and get brown. And you know, also when it comes to a lot of the weeds in my garden, I've been learning about them and realizing that a lot of them are edible or medicinal or useful in some way. And if you haven't seen, I started a series called Weeds with Worth, where I talk about all the usefulness of the weeds that I personally, and probably you too, have spent many hours yanking out of the garden and being frustrated with. And instead I can look at those and actually get harvests from it and do useful things with my weeding. So if you're interested in that, I'll link the playlist below. If we take a look at the third row here, I do have a few volunteers. This is a coriander / cilantro plant, and here's another volunteer, or 3 I suppose. I didn't plant these here. I really did try to plant cilantro earlier in the season because it does like cold weather. You can see in the warm weather it just goes to seed and doesn't make really the tastiest leaves. But I let it go to seed because it's making coriander seeds, which I am out of, and I do need those. So, you know, I'm also working around these as I'm yanking and mulching and such. Coming into this arch, I do actually have a fair bit planted on this arch. I have started my noodle beans here, and I actually tried starting them indoors and then planting them out as soon as they sprouted because I've had trouble in the past with pill bugs coming in and eating all my baby sprouts. And I'm still kind of having that issue. I do have some live plants still that look like they're big enough that they kind of survived the worst of it, but I definitely need to come through and put some more seeds in to fill in the gaps. And I also spent some time the other day kind of pushing back these weeds because I have onions planted here along the trellis that have been getting choked out by the weeds. You know, that is kind of a negative of letting it get as bad as it did. I definitely could have maybe come through and done a little bit of maintenance a little bit sooner. However, there are still onions here and they are not dead, so that is a bit of a win. They easily could have just been choked out so much that they fully died. So I am grateful that they are still there despite my negligence. And this is one of the noodle bean sprouts. You can see it is living a rough little life out there. This one's doing a little better. This one has been munched on pretty heavily, so is that one. But once they get to this stage, which actually takes them like 3 weeks or so, once they get to this stage where they've started making their second pair of leaves here, they do actually really start taking off. And then this will be like 2-3 feet tall before you even know it. In the middle, we have more flowering brassicas, and they've actually been making seed pods for me. I'm pretty sure this is the volunteer broccoli from earlier in the season. And then past it on this arch, this will eventually be cucumbers, but for now I haven't planted them yet. And we have some more baby onions that may or may not survive that I, again, had to kind of dig out from the weeds here. So moving back past the arch into this section here, there is a fava bean plant here. I had wished to have more, but I really couldn't get them to sprout very well last fall. So this is a plant that overwintered and it's looking amazing right now. There are some fava beans coming on it. And I will have at least a few fava beans. Not a ton to do a lot with because I just have the one plant. But, you know, we'll be happy with our one plant. I think gardening gets a lot less frustrating when you make an effort to celebrate the things that are going right instead of focusing all the time on all the things that are not going according to plan. Because this is gardening, these are live plants, and you are never going to have a year where everything goes according to plan. So, you know, you take your wins where you can get them, and you learn your lessons from the things that don't go so well. This monster here at the end is my feverfew plant. It looks like potentially something dug up at it or stepped on it or something, but it is a very hardy plant. I think I could probably mow it over with the lawnmower and it would still come back and be great. I've actually been using this to help with one of my friend's migraines, and she says that since she's been taking it, she has not had any migraines, and it's been several months now. So this is absolutely going to be a staple in my garden from now on. And speaking of medicinal plants, the lemon balm is really fluffing out. You can't even tell that I harvested like a third of this plant the other day because it's already fluffed right back out. And I remember thinking at the end of the winter that this plant looked like, oh, maybe it is like fully dead, but I could barely see it coming back. And now I'm just like, why did I worry? It looks so healthy. All right, so now we are in the opposite back corner of the garden, and this is where my established blueberry plant is. And then I put 2 other blueberry plants that you probably can't really see on camera because they really blend into all the weeds back there. But there's one behind this onion, and there's another much smaller one right there under my finger. And I also have this onion here, which I think might be one of my walking onions that I tried planting here. There's another one over here, but I'm not sure because I did a terrible job of cataloging where exactly I planted all these perennial onion things. So my guess is that it is a walking onion, and I'm hoping it's a walking onion because once you have one, then a patch will start forming. In this cleared space, which I cleared out of all of the grass that had grown here over the winter, I have potatoes now. Most of the stuff that you can see coming up is potatoes. These are my little purple potatoes, which I like so much. And even though I am growing Jerusalem artichokes now, and those are a great potato replacement, I still love my little purple potatoes, and I don't ever really want to let them go. You know, taking a second look at this other bigger onion back here, this might also be a walking onion. You see the way it's like growing a new onion from the top instead of making a flower head? I mean, it also does have, this new onion also has a flower head on the top of it, so it could also be just like a genetic abnormality, because sometimes that happens. But it also could be a walking onion. I guess only time will tell. For comparison, this is what the top of a normal onion will look like. And as this kind of outer papery layer peels off, it will open up into a really pretty fluffy flower. And then each of these is going to then become a seed. So this head is going to make something like, I don't know, 100 seeds for me. As we go along this final row, it is maybe one of the worst, weediest rows. Like, I know it doesn't look maybe as bad as all that over there, but the sorts of weeds that are over here are like false wild strawberries, which are really tough to get rid of because they vine out so aggressively. There are some edible weeds in here, like the, I think this is like a wild pea of some sort here. And I did also plant some potatoes in this general area. Here's a potato, there's a potato, there's a potato, there's one. And these ones I did not weed around, mostly kind of just to see what happens, because I know potatoes are pretty hardy. They push up through pretty much everything. And you can see these false wild strawberries here. They look so good until you taste them, and they taste absolutely terrible. I think they are edible, they're not going to kill you, but like, who would want to eat that? Early this spring, kind of like late winter, I had also tried to plant kale in this area, specifically a perennial kale, and it's just really not doing well. You can see technically there is still a plant here, that's a kale right there, but there was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 in here, and I think they might have gotten eaten by the pill bugs, unfortunately. Like here you can see just kind of an empty hole, no kale to be seen, unfortunately. All right, here on the porch steps, I do still have all of my peppers and eggplant that desperately need to be planted out. You can tell they are way too big for their containers at this point. And I'm hoping to plant them out in the next couple of days here, because with these specific plants, you really don't want to plant them out until it's above 50 consistently at night. And right about now, it's looking like it is going to be above 50 for the rest of the summer. So I do feel safe going ahead and planting these out. All right, let's move on to the other section of the garden, which is like slightly more curated looking. Definitely easier to keep free from weeds. Let's start with the pergola, which has my grapes and my hardy kiwi on it. You can see the grapevines are really taking off now, and I'm having to kind of train them in this direction because they really want to grow on this trellis instead. But we're going to make sure they keep going up that away. Here's a second grape here. This one's just a little bit smaller. This vine is my hardy kiwi vine. This particular plant is the pollinator plant, not the fruit-bearing plant. This one on the opposite side is the fruit-bearing plant. And you can see its little vine is starting to go. Pretty soon it'll be tall enough to start training up the pergola. And as I was looking at my grapes the other day, I actually noticed this. Pretty sure those are baby grapes. I mean, they're probably baby flowers, which will then become baby grapes. But still, that's exciting. I wasn't really sure if I would get grapes this year. I was thinking maybe next year, because it can take a while for these sorts of things to get established and feel good about producing fruit. But even if all I get is this one little bunch, I think that'll be so exciting. All right, let's take a look at my very first ever raised bed in this area. I have planted out a few new herbs in here. I have some chamomile, which I bought from the store because apparently I'm incapable of starting chamomile from seed. I have a little bit more dill. This is a wild Japanese parsley. It should be more perennial than regular parsley, which is only biennial, so it always dies after the second year. And then this is a curly parsley, which is just a regular one, also from the store, because when I'm at a plant store, I really can't be stopped. And you'll see more of that in a minute. I also have here my original sage plant that has been here ever since I moved in. And it continues to look excellent year over year. I also have another feverfew. This one I put in the raised bed for like kind of safety, because I did sprout these from seed and I wasn't sure how the one in the ground would do. But honestly, the one in the ground is doing even better. However, this one can continue to live here. I also got this is an Italian oregano plant, which I did have to buy again from the store because my last one did die over the winter. And my partner likes this one better than the Greek oregano that grows super easily in my garden, unfortunately. So I will be keeping both around for the future. And this is also my original thyme plant, which every year it just gets more massive. I mean, look at that. And it's flowering right now, which means it smells amazing. And also apparently the flies really love it. They're doing a very good job pollinating in there. And honestly, they're pretty flies. They're so iridescent, like this blue-green color. I don't know if y'all can tell, but I think that's really pretty. Speaking of thyme taking over, I am trying to get creeping thyme to develop as a ground cover kind of in this area. I started with 1, 2, 3 plants last year. This one here has done the best, and it's definitely spread out a lot. I want to get some more plants this year and hopefully do a lot more of this in between areas with the creeping thyme. And now this raised bed, I have my other marshmallow plant that has come back. I was a little worried it wouldn't come back because it was a little slower than the other one, but honestly, it looks healthy as a horse. It's doing great. Once again, I did not need to worry about it. Next to it here, I have planted purple asparagus. I got like something like 10 crowns from Stark Brothers, and I know they don't look very purple at the moment because they've kind of turned a little green as they've gotten some sunlight, but when they first were coming up, they were very purple. However, I am a little bit concerned about them. They seem to be getting munched on by the pill bugs, the roly-polies, and that tells me that they're probably not feeling the healthiest. If you look right here, actually, that is another one trying to come up that is just getting absolutely demolished before it can really fully poke up out of the soil, which is very unfortunate. And usually I don't like to use insecticides, like at all, but as you can see, I have been using a little bit of diatomaceous earth in here to curb the pill bug population, but because for some reason that I'm not really sure, this particular raised bed is just chock full of them. The population exploded. There's way too many, and there doesn't seem to be anything here to check that population to eat them. So I'm having to kind of step into that environmental role myself. And thankfully, the diatomaceous earth isn't dangerous to me or my pets or my plants. And it should at least put a dent in the roly-poly population. You can see this guy's literally taking bites of my strawberry as we speak. So as far as the strawberries go, I've planted 25 ever-bearing strawberries in here. I planted them from bare roots maybe a couple weeks ago now, and they're actually starting to put on their leaves. As you can see, I think they are going to be able to outcompete the pill bugs for the most part, or at least the ones that are already healthy are going to be able to do okay. I am not expecting 100% with these guys. So speaking of strawberries and getting them planted, actually, earlier today in the private Discord group that I host for patrons, viewer Tracy was asking about strawberries. She's never planted strawberries before and she wanted tips. And I was actually able to get on there and answer her question pretty quickly and draw a somewhat questionable, useful, but not very artistic sketch of how to plant bare root strawberries, because you do have to kind of plant them differently than you would plant other plants. And I was really happy that I was able to get to her questions so fast, because that group really facilitates me being able to see y'all's messages just very quickly, because Discord is up on my computer all day while I'm doing work. If that sounds like something that you would want to be a part of, until the end of April, you can go ahead and join my Patreon. I'm running a special where you can not only get access to the Discord group, but you can also get a one-on-one session with me where I can help you out with stuff in your garden. I know it is April and it is spring and there's a lot of things to plan and talk about, so if you have specific questions that I can help you with, I would absolutely love to do that. And then also, just kind of like as a celebration of spring, I have a limited edition holographic sticker that I'm going to be sending to everybody who's on my Patreon in the month of April. Hold on a minute. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I left it out here on the table. So I have it here on my water bottle. It says this isn't even my final form, and it is so shiny. I really love it. So yeah, if that is something that you're interested in, it is only available until the 30th of April, so go check the link in my description to join us. All right, we're gonna move right along into the tiered raised bed. In here, I have my garlic chives coming back. I have the calendula that I planted. These ones were started indoors and then transplanted out. And then you can see, I think I actually have a ton of sprouts coming up from seeds that last year's plants dropped. I think this one also is a seed that sprouted. In here, I also have some onion chives. I did end up having to buy more from the store because the ones from last year were just absolutely fully dead. I do have an onion in here that I think is just left over from last year. I did not realize it was here, but now it is huge. And you remember I was talking about sometimes there's weird genetic deformities of the flowers. This one, again, it is, instead of a flower, just kind of growing more onion. Also down here next to Draco, my sweet, sweet boy, is a carrot that I think just grew from a seed that fell, and it's grown so perfectly in the crack here that I can't even pull it out because it's so big. There's not enough room to pull it out. So it's kind of just stuck here indefinitely. So that's kind of interesting, and it's also encouraging. I always see stuff like this and I remind myself plants want to grow, so don't be too scared about trying stuff. Up top are the rest of the carrots that are left over from the season. These are all the ones that I'm leaving to make seeds for me for the coming fall, and they are all a purple type of carrot. I don't remember exactly what type of carrot, but they are purple, and generally that's all that matters to me. So pretty soon we should start seeing the seed stalks come up. Going down a level, this is the Greek oregano, and you can see just how much it loves it here. I think something like this is an excellent ground cover, although depending on your area, it might actually end up being kind of aggressive, the same way mint would be. But if you would rather have Greek oregano than grass, I'm pretty sure it could take over. It does such a good job right here. And then down here, I have a couple more chamomile, again from the store, because I don't know why, but I cannot get it to germinate here at home. And then also another Japanese wild parsley. In this raised bed here, this is all of my Jerusalem artichokes right now, and theoretically there are also American ground nuts in here that haven't come up yet, and I did start to get worried about them, and so I dug one of them up to check, and it's not dead, it's just slow. So all of this stuff that you can see right now is the Jerusalem artichokes coming back in here. And then this raised bed I actually recently reset. I kind of cleared it out and added new soil and some mulch, and then I planted in it. So in here I actually am going to have a Three Sisters garden. This is going to be pumpkins and vining beans and also corn. So I got down the middle, I think 3 rows of corn here, and I planted kind of zigzag a couple of pumpkins this direction. I think I put Seminole pumpkins and tan pumpkins, if I believe. Both of those should be pretty good for my area. And then I also planted red velvet pole beans kind of in a circle all along the outer edge of it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the corn is already sprouting. Where'd you go? There you are. Look at that. It's only been a couple of days too. And then this is why we have to curb the pill bug population, because this bean trying to sprout, and before it's even like fully pushed up out of the ground, they're eating away at it. Ooh, and here's a pumpkin sprout right there. Nobody's eating that one. I wonder why. All right, we're kind of moving on to the final big section of the garden, which is the berry patch extended. In this raised bed right here, this is the last raised bed, I have planted my sweet potatoes. I sprouted a bunch of them indoors, just on a plate with a little bit of water in it. And so far, two of them have come up, and I'm thinking pretty soon there will be a lot more to see here. This one right here is my St. John's wort, which is doing absolutely wonderful, and it's such a pretty plant. I really like having it here. It is right next to one of my new blueberry bushes that I put in. This is another sunshine blueberry. It looks slightly rough right now. It's not handling the transplant super well, but it is alive and I am at least happy about that. I also have another blueberry here. This one, I think it might be Misty or something like that. It looks great, but it hasn't tried to put on any fruit at all this year, unfortunately. Whereas the sunshine next to it that I've had for a few years is making a ton of fruit. Like this entire branch right here is just straight up fruit. And we have another branch here that is going to be just fruit. Fruit, 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 everywhere you look on this plant, which is why I got more of the sunshine variety when I was looking for more blueberry bushes. I've also started getting strawberries just the other day. I've picked a total of, I think, 4 strawberries. And it looks like these ones will be ready pretty soon. I'll give them 2 or 3 days. I do have fewer strawberries in this area. Oh, hello, Kata. They really want to be on camera today. I do have fewer strawberries in this area than I did last year. They used to be all in here. And, you know, because of the drought and because of me being stubborn about watering them, a bunch of them died. So unfortunately, we are going to have to allow these guys to kind of repopulate that direction. And I have learned my lesson that I pushed it too far with allowing them to go through that drought. Fortunately, the blackberries didn't care about the drought. They are still looking incredible. I mean, look at all those flowers. We've got so many fruits coming on. This is going to be kind of a bonkers harvest this year, I'm thinking. I also can't remember if I showed you the update on the rhubarb that I planted back here. I really thought that it died because it did get kind of cold after I planted it, and some of it seemed to like fully die back. But, you know, the root bit stayed alive, and you can actually see, let me maneuver you in here, these big leaves right here, that one and that one, that is the rhubarb coming back there. I've got another one right there. There is another one in the weeds here, right there, and a 4th one right there. So we've got 4 out of 6 that survived, which is way better than I would have thought. We're also getting very close to raspberry season. They are slightly behind the blackberries. However, you can see all their little fruits coming on right in here. There's just some baby raspberries. So very soon. And usually that would be the end of the tour, but if you didn't catch my video the other day, I've planted a whole bunch of new perennials. Back here I have something called a pineapple guava. This, I'm thinking it'll probably fruit in the fall. I'm very excited about it. I also have a self-heal plant, which is a native wildflower, and I'm hoping that that will act as sort of like a ground cover in this area. But I also did plant even more strawberries in this area. These are June bearing, whereas the ones in the raised bed are ever bearing. And if we come over here, this is a pomegranate tree. It is actually starting to leaf out pretty well. It'll be probably a couple of years before it fruits. It is a dwarf variety, so it shouldn't get just too big. Over here, this is called Carolina Allspice. You can see it's making things that look kind of star-shaped as their flowers, and the bark is supposed to be a good cinnamon substitute, which I'm really excited about because I have 2 friends that are allergic to cinnamon. I also want to zoom you guys in on my fig. This I thought was dead, and it has been coming back, and it looks pretty good. I am concerned about the fact that this top bit did die off, but I am happy that the full thing is not dead because I definitely lost my other fig, and I do feel guilty about it because it was sent to me by a viewer and I really wanted it to survive and it just didn't. And it's sad, sometimes these things happen, and like I was saying before with the microclimates, where I have the other fig, it might have just not been quite warm enough for it, whereas it was barely warm enough for this one to come back potentially. Because I've been so worried about my figs, I did buy yet another fig. This one is much larger than any of the other figs I've had. It is LSU purple, And I don't know if I'll get actually any fruit off of it this year. I'm not really expecting to, but it looks so big and healthy. I'm hoping that it will be here for a while. Lastly, up here I do have 3 citrus trees. This one is much tinier than the other 2. This is a citramon citrus tree. I also have, this one is US 942, and I do need to come up with a cuter name for it. I think I might call it Sour Patch tree, because the grower described it as like a Sour Patch orange candy. It is kind of sour with a little bit of that sweet to it. And then this one is a kumquat. And this has actually been dealing with a pretty serious iron deficiency since I got it, but it does seem to be recovering. These leaves specifically used to be the same pale yellow as up there, and you can see they are finally getting a little bit greener. So I know my soil is really high in iron, but I also gave it some chelated iron. Chelated, I'm not sure how to say that word. So with both of those things together, it should have plenty of iron access to in the soil. And it did come to me this way. I didn't do anything to it. It just, happened to pick up the wrong one and forgot to check the leaves very closely as I was buying arguably more plants than I needed. If you haven't seen the video where I planted all of these, I do explain a lot more about the varieties in that one. And then also, if you're on my Patreon, you will have seen the vlog where I actually take you with me to the citrus farm and I show you all the different plants that he has, and we talk about why these citrus are probably going to do so well in this area. Okay, last thing for sure. So this is the area where that other fig I had is almost certainly dead at this point, unfortunately. But my elderberry is not dead. I was totally right. And this is it coming back right here. And now that it's established, I'm pretty sure it'll be here forever. The elderberry that I got this cutting from, it's so vigorous. So I'm really excited to have this elderberry start getting established here. All right, so don't forget that the April special is ending at the end of April, and that is coming up very soon. So if you do want to join us inside Patreon, if you want to get that one-on-one session with me, if you want to get inside the Discord, if you want that really cool holographic sticker, then check out the link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I wish you all happy gardening.